think I'm about ready. Are you?
You're never ready. You just go when you're ready enough.
Well, in that case, welcome to this week's Tech Talk, everyone. The UI Library's Data Hub Tech Talk series is a series that hopes to connect UI researchers and community members with tools for conducting research and scholarship in the information age. And to that end, we had Jason Thomas, extension educator, here to talk about non-traditional forms of publishing scholarly work. So, Jason, Emmett.
All right. Well, thank you, Norm, for letting me join you guys and all you guys that are viewing out there, whether you are in the library or you're just viewing virtually. If you have any questions as we're going through this presentation, please feel free to interrupt me. I'm happy to answer questions. It's going to help tailor it more to what you want to learn. Because I have a whole lot of stuff I can say, but if none of it connects with you, then it means nothing. So if you have a question about something, please ask, because I like to know what you're thinking or what your questions are so we can clarify that as we go. So we'll go through the presentation and then we'll have some time, it sounds like, for some question and answer at the end as well. But if you have questions as we go, just feel free to raise your hand. And then Norm can let me know if there's someone with a question there and I can pause for a minute. It's really totally fine. I get distracted easily. So if you distract me with a question, that's fine. It might make my presentation better. All right, so we're going to share screens here. Let's make sure we got this going. Hopefully we don't have to be on the PowerPoint for too long. Basically, the way I've broken this down is we're going to do some PowerPoint, and then we're going to look at some videos that I've made, and then we'll also go kind of under the hood of some of the things and talk about how I designed some of the things that I did. So the problem we kind of, let's make sure this is working here. Come on. There we go. So the problem we kind of have is there's lots of problems in the world. There's all sorts of things happening, and don't look too close at the image because it's AI generated and you'll find really weird things in it, but that might haunt you at night. So just be careful. But anyways, we're all trying to solve problems and fix problems in the world and make the world a better place. That's kind of seems like in general the purpose that people would agree on for humanity. And as researchers, we're trying to get information and get that information out there and give people that information so they'll make changes in their lives. Well, there's an effect, it's called the backfire effect, because you'd think that, just giving people information, they'll make the right choice and they will be better people, but that's not the case. So here's two case studies that I pulled up. And if you want references to this, you can reach out to me at my email, which I'll share at the end, and I can get you references. But anyways, it kind of cut off part of the text there. But anyways, it says there was one study where they examined voting preference, and it showed that introducing people to negative information about a political candidate that they favor often causes them to increase their support for that candidate. And then another one about misconceptions with politically charged topics. So basically what happens when people get more information, very often they're not going to change their behavior, but it can backfire on you, right? So if you've discovered something new, some scientific research that proves something or suggests something, and you share that with people, if they are an opinion to the contrary, they could actually use that information to strengthen their own pre-existing beliefs, as it says here. So really a lot of what I'll focus on today is just how we can be better communicators and why it's important the way that we present information. So this is a quote by Mark Twain, and I love this quote. He says, "I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead." And really that speaks to the truth of communication. Communication, just like science and research, is an art, and it takes a lot of work to be able to communicate something in a short amount of words. It's harder to do that than it is to communicate in a lot of words. The problem with a lot of words, though, is you're going to lose people along the way and they have to do a lot of work. So we have to be careful about that. So I came up with this analogy. It may not be that great of an analogy, and there's probably some nutritionist out there that's going to try and shoot this down, but just bear with me as we go through this analogy. So think of, let's just say you're all researchers, and researchers, how do they fit into communications? Well, this is my analogy. Just imagine that researchers are like dairy farmers. They take care of the cows, and they're making sure the cows are doing well, and their goal is to get that milk. So they're getting the milk from the cows, which we're going to say in our analogy that the milk is research. So the research we get out of whatever scientific field we're in, or whatever the problem is that we're researching, think of that milk as like the research, right? So I go do my research, and now I have this raw milk product. I know the cows really well, and I know that raw milk product because I've basically raised that cow from a baby and taking care of that cow, monitored its food, checked its health all the time. I was the one who literally milked the cow, whether by a machine or by hand. So I am extremely familiar with that milk, and I know the value of that milk, and what it took to produce that milk, or that research, if you'll follow along with my little analogy. Well, what's going to happen if you take that milk that you just barely got out of the cow and you just go give it to Joe Vandal or some random person, right? If you give it to a random person and you were to give them raw milk, would they actually know what to do with it, how to use it? Do they see the value in it, right? And most people, for the most part, are not going to know what to do with raw milk, right? Because there's a certain amount of time that you've got to pasteurize that or do something with that, or it's just going to rot and go bad, right? So that milk, or that research, we have to find a way to get it into a form that people will be able to consume, and that people will see the value in it. And so to me, what I like to do, the way I like to see it, is that our research, we can take that milk and that research and we can turn it into ice cream, right? Everybody loves ice cream. If you don't, I'm sorry. But through that process, it's going to be a lot of work, right? To take that raw product, we're going to have to do some pasteurization. We're going to have to add some sugars and add some other additional ingredients. We're going to have to go through a bunch of processes. And so even though we put all this work into making this milk, because we're the dairy farmers or the researchers, we got this research to get it to a point where people will actually consume it and use it and want it. There's going to be a lot of work and a lot of processes that we have to go through in order to get it so the public wants to consume that, or, you know, partake in that, as we're with our little ice cream reference. So another thing with it is we have to have something that can compete. And I know this is just like breakfast foods, but you just think about media and information. There's so much information up there, and there's so many enticing things to read and to learn about. And so if we just bring out this raw milk and people have other options that are really sweet and tasty and have all these flavors, people aren't going to understand the value of that raw milk, because, you know, it's a lot of work, and it's like, well, I can't do a lot with that. I have to do all this work to get something out of it. And so I'd rather just have something that's easy to consume, some fast food or whatever it is, right? Which we could relate to all sorts of different types of media. So that's kind of my mentality with education, with information, with research, is trying to make things palatable and easy for people to understand. And it's really hard and it's a lot of work, but to me, that's what I enjoy, is that kind of instructional design and that kind of education. So here's just an example with me of kind of the challenge I had to face. So when I was done with my bachelor's degree, I got an opportunity to go to an internship at Purdue University. And at Purdue University, they have a really big entomology program for kids. They teach kids a lot about insects, how to collect insects, how to make an insect collection, how to kill the insects, all those different things. And there's hundreds of pages of these books with this information, but it's all, you know, it's all in writing. And to me, that's not necessarily a raw milk. Maybe that's like a pasteurized milk or something, but it's not quite to that stage where people are like, oh, that's really easy for me to consume and eat, or that's something I really want. Because a lot of people don't want to read necessarily. It's just kind of I'm not saying it's good or bad, but that's just kind of how our day and age that we live in is. The younger generations, more and more, they want something really easy to consume, very simple. You can see that with all the trends on TikTok of people just wanting very short, quick, precise information, things that are very easy to consume. So this was all in about 2014 when I was working on this, and YouTube had only been out for, I don't know, a number of years. So what we ended up doing is I worked with them and I said, let's make some YouTube videos and let's take this information and make this into videos. And we can talk briefly about kind of my process of how I made the videos, but I'm just going to show you some clips. So a key thing with this, which is a key thing with communications always, is you have to know your audience. So the audience I was targeting was youth. So I'm going to show you one of the videos, just a little clip here of some of it, just to kind of see what I made. But you have to remember, this is for kids. This is not necessarily for adults. What's made. So I did some goofy things in it. We won't watch all of it, but we'll at least watch a little of it. And so what we created was a YouTube channel called The Insect Hunter. And you can see here, I just show this logo so you can see how primitive my logo was. I was just like, yeah, I'm just messing around with graphics and I'm making my own stuff. And so I made something and it just is not that great looking, but you'll see kind of how it evolved over time. So with that, I'm going to show you a video here. So let's click this. Let's see. Hopefully the sound is up and running. So I'll let you watch the intro of the video, which is again kind of a hook to get kids interested in this. And the purpose of these videos is to teach kids that it's not difficult to collect insects, and collecting insects can be fun and is important for making decisions as a homeowner or as a farmer or in many situations. So we'll see if this decides to work for us.
Here lie the trophies of some of the great hunters of the past. They walk beneath our feet, fly above our heads, cross our paths. If one desires to find these treasures, he need not look far, but right in front of him. He shall cast in his net and become an insect hunter.
Okay, so now I'll show you one of the.
Hey everybody.
I'll show you one of the characters teaching him.
Today we're trying to find some of nature's most fascinating creatures, insects. In order to find insects, you must look in various places. The more places you look, the more variety of insects you'll find. Let's go and see if we can find some insects to catch. Places to start looking for insects is on the ground. Though most of them fly, many will possibly live under rocks, logs, and other debris which is on the ground. First, we'll start here with this rotting log. Simply lift it up and start to look underneath for insects. As you can see, underneath there's many types of insects and other things scurrying around. Sometimes even moving.
Okay, so that's probably enough of that for now. So that was one of the videos that I made, and over time, my channel, I got better at it and I understood more of what my audience wanted. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to show you kind of the evolution of where the channel went over a number of years. And then I'll show you kind of what ended up happening with the channel at a certain point. So here's another video later on. I'm just going to show you a clip. So this is my most popular video that has, let's see here. It's got, I don't even know if it's showing it, but anyways, it's got like 7 million views. So this was me filming. Again, the purpose of my channel is to try and teach people about insects, and especially teach them that insects are not scary, not something you should be afraid of, and that they're very fascinating creatures that you should want to learn about, right? And the end goal is to help people to not want to just use pesticides all the time and try to think holistically about insects and how we're supposed to deal with them in different ways and tactics to deal with them. But I'll show you this, and you can kind of see that I'm trying to teach people a little bit, but also trying to have fun and making it engaging. So throw them backward, and then with this ant, you can see that he clearly is just basically what this is this is a mantispid, this insect here, also known as a mantis fly, and they mimic and look like wasps. So I put one on a leaf and I left it there and just watched what it did, and then a wasp came and they were kind of fighting, a wasp versus the wasp mimic, right? And these are kind of like they look kind of like a praying mantis, but I kind of teach some of that to them of, okay, what's the biology of these insects? And then they just kind of started fighting and stuff. So I think people really enjoyed getting to learn about them and also seeing this action and engaging material. Them up and throwing them backward is pretty awesome. Look at that. Just kind of dumps it back in almost this mechanical motion. It's awesome. Then I decided to see what he would do with the wasp, and he actually just flew over to the wasp. So this is kind of the thing that he's trying to mimic. And the wasp was definitely aware of him, and he was aware of the wasp. Kind of takes a swipe at him, tries to hit him, but the wasp was able to just knock him right off. Most insects don't even want to fight if they don't have to. I mean, he just, hey, knock him off the leaf, you don't have to fight. Here he goes again. He takes a swipe at that wasp. Here he comes up from behind. This time he was totally surprised, and all it takes from the yellow jacket is just to knock him over with his with his right leg there. He just knocks him straight off of the leaf. They're very waxy and hard to stay on. So the yellow jacket is coming up towards him, and he takes a swipe at him, and he kind of does a barrel roll over there. Do a barrel roll! That's what I was thinking. And the wasp kind of gets distracted by that little fly over there. He doesn't really want anyone on these leaves because he wants to be eating the honeydew for himself. And then he finally notices, oh yeah, there's this mantispid still on there. So then the battle ensues. He tries to take a bite at him, but the mantispid is kind of really just waiting for that opportunity, almost like a martial artist, to grab onto his body. It's cool to watch the wasp kind of put his legs up to try and make himself look more threatening. They grab onto each other, and the mantispid kind of shakes him around and drags him off like a wrecking ball. It's awesome. In this fight, the wasp kind of gets thrown away, but I mean, he just flies off anyway, so it's not going to affect him that much. Watch that. You see how that wasp tries to go in there with its jaws and just barely misses his face. If he would have got him in the face, he could have caused some severe damage, but the mantispid keeps putting up a fight using those awesome claws. Grabs onto him and tries to just kind of throw him off there. In slow motion, it almost looks like they're drunk or something, but I mean, it's all a really fast fight, what's actually happening. Then he kind of gets him underneath and throws him off, and that wasp was really trying to get him with his stinger, but wasn't able to pull it off. Thanks for watching this episode. Okay, let me pull up my PowerPoint again. Okay, so if you're going to try and design some sort of media or a video or trying to communicate with the public, you have to try and create this balance between the science and your viewers and what they want. So that's kind of what I do in my process, is trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to teach? And then what do people actually want? And then trying to find this balance between those two. Because you don't want something to just be pure entertainment. You want it to be entertaining, but you also want it to include scientific content. And then from there, you're going to take that to create a script, and then you can use that script to make a video. And if you want to know more about how I make my videos, it's basically a one-man show. I do everything. So just about everything. I do the editing, doing the scripts, just a lot of the stuff. So that's not going to be typical. I mean, it's probably going to be better to have more people to help you. So kind of the way that I think about this is you have to kind of try and find a balance and figure out how you are going to communicate your message. So you're trying to balance the scientific accuracy with accessibility and with engagement, right? Because if you only focus on scientific accuracy, people probably aren't going to want to read or listen to your podcast or watch your video or engage with you unless they're a scientist, right? So you want to make it scientifically accurate, engaging, and then also accessible, which to me is simplicity. It's easy enough for everyone to understand. So again, this is very subjective, but I just thought of some ideas while I was kind of preparing today of just different types of things on the spectrum of where they might land. So an article in the journal Nature is probably going to be focused primarily on just the scientific accuracy, but the question is how many people actually read that. And maybe a lot of you guys do, but the general public, that's a huge portion of the population that's not going to read technical papers that are focused on being scientifically accurate and correct in their information, right? Because that's the whole purpose of those. So by saying, hey, I've got my science, I'm going to give it to the public in the form it is right now, and they have to accept it and figure it out themselves, you're just not going to get a good response. You're not going to have people that are super engaged with it because, again, you're trying to give them a product that that they can't consume, right? They don't understand it, so they're just not going to read it, right? I'm not going to read technical papers on different drugs or something if in some pharmacology journal because I don't understand it. I would have to do so much work to make it meaningful to me because it's just so difficult for me to comprehend because of how technical the paper is and all the jargon. And then you can get all sorts of things in between, right? You can get movies that are somewhat based on scientific evidence and are trying to kind of teach you at the same time and keep things realistic. And then others where it's just, we want this to be a really good story and easy to follow and super engaging. And the science is very minimal, like in a science fiction movie. So again, your goal is to try and find that sweet spot. But to me, there's not a perfect balance because the more engaging you try to be and the more accessible you try to be, sometimes you get further away from scientific accuracy. So you have to kind of pick a balance of where you're going to be. That's my belief anyways. And if you disagree, that's fine. We can chat about that in a minute. But the whole point is if nobody wants to consume your material, then you're kind of, in my opinion, you're kind of failing to some degree, right? To help the public understand and make changes, because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to take your raw milk product or your research and try to translate it into something consumable. And in the process, they might go farther away from the scientific accuracy. So you being a part of that process, you can control it and you can kind of try to guide it as best as you can. Okay, so let's just imagine a situation where someone has a question about genetics. Now, maybe some of you guys know who both these people are, but the general public, if there was some question on genetics, the general public is probably going to listen much more to Bill Nye here, just because they know who he is, they know he's engaging, even if he's not a technical researcher and he's not, I don't want to say he's inaccurate, but again, he simplifies things, because the more you're simplifying, to some degree, you're kind of moving away from the scientific accuracy, because you'll make some summaries that are, you're summarizing things and it may not be 100% true, but it's very close, because there's technical little things of, yes, this is true, but only in XYZ, but for the public to understand those XYZ, it's easier to just say, for the most part, this is true, right? Or whatever. So most people are going to listen to Bill Nye, but the other guy that's on there, I'm trying to remember his name. Let me see if I can find it here. Had it on my phone. He's the geneticist, and I can't remember his name because he's not that famous or whatever, right? But anyways, he is the man who basically was the main person who helped to discover and lead the research in terms of CRISPR-Cas9, I think is what it's called. So basically, he's extremely knowledgeable in genetics and things like that, but he's not spending his time going out there teaching these awesome, exciting, fun science lessons and stuff like that, right? So again, you just have to have this balance of trying to decide where you're going to be and potentially hiring other people to help you communicate your message, because if you want people to be able to consume it, you have to be able to think like, and I'm not trying to say this in any way that's rude, but you have to think like a normal person or just a person in the general public, or think like the average person, because the average person does not think scientifically. So you have to be able to think beyond just the scope of the highly specific scientific field that you're in. Otherwise, people are not going to get your message. So now we can take a look under the hood of my YouTube channel. So we can do that. We'll do that first for just a second. I'll just show you some tools and things you can do with YouTube. And then we can talk maybe for a minute about my board game, which is called Pest Friends. So let's see here. So I'm just going to show you some of like the analytics of things that you can check with videos. So let's say this video here, I want to see how people are reacting to it and viewing it. So this one here, you can see within about 30 seconds, we lose almost 50% of our audience. So within 30 seconds. So maybe that makes me say, okay, maybe I need to do a better, maybe I need to do a better intro or something, right? Maybe they clicked on it. They didn't think it's that interesting or whatever, right? So here's the first 30 seconds of the video. Let's see if it wants to play here. In today's episode of The Insect Hunter, I'm going to show you how to build a pitfall trap. I'll show you some variations on this trap, and then I'll show you the insect gold I was able to find using this method. This just shows you how I simplified my intro. So I made it simpler, I made the logo simpler, everything was simpler, right? It's easier to understand what I'm doing, right? So the first thing I want to, so within 30 seconds, we lost quite a bit of people. So people might not be interested in that topic, but you can use this to see when people are dropping off, right? Of how quickly you lose people's interest. At certain points, there might be peaks and other things, right? You might also see other things like this. So let's take a look at this one here. This one has a really high view amount of how long they'll view the video. So again, we lose people. Again, you're going to lose a lot of people in that beginning, but most people actually stick around mostly till the end, much better than that other one. So something about this video is more engaging, right? Because there's some fighting and things going on, or maybe they don't know about these mantispids, things like that. So you can, if there's anything you want to see on my YouTube channel or look at, I can show you, but I'm going to just show you what happened over time with my YouTube channel, which is just interesting to look at. So this is my YouTube channel, the number of views I had. So basically, if you go here to August, so sorry, this is the number of subscribers I had on my channel. So if you go here to, or is this views? Hold on just a second. Okay, yeah, we'll go to subscribers. So if you look here in like January, I had very few views per day on my videos. Like I was getting just a handful of views for the first 4 or 5 years. So it took me years to be making videos before YouTube would actually start like promoting my videos. But once we hit 2019, all of a sudden the YouTube algorithm decided to recommend me to people. And so I was getting thousands of views every single day. So you can just see how crazy it went when the algorithm was kind of backing me. The number of subscribers I was getting per day and the number of views are just really high. Sorry. So it was 150,000, 160,000 views in one day, right? So day to day, I could be getting that many views and having that many people engaging with my content. So again, you're kind of at the will of the algorithm, and the algorithm, is going to pick things that are engaging. People aren't going to watch things unless they're engaging for the most part. If you want to get a lot of people to view your stuff and participate and be engaged. Let's see here. Did we have a question in the chat? Let's stop that for just a second. Oh, Christina knew the answer. Yep, she knew who it was. She messaged me. Yep, Feng Zhang. So you knew who they were, but most of the people in the public won't know those types of people. I haven't heard any questions yet, so I'll kind of go through some of this other stuff and talk about more of my work, and then hopefully you guys will have some questions, because I don't want to just keep rambling here. Because I did the Mark Twain thing. I made this giant presentation because I didn't want to take time for you guys to make you a simple one that's easy to understand. So usually I'm focusing more on making insects and bugs and pest management easier to understand, not communicating. It's not my forte per se, but, or at least I'm not great at teaching it. I need more practice, right? But okay, so let's look at this. So this is another project that I did that well, hold on just a second. I'm sharing the wrong one. There we go. That's what you guys want. Okay, so this is another project that I did. This is an educational board game called Pest Friends, and it teaches people about pest management. So basically, during the pandemic, we thought about this idea of, okay, can we create a board game which simulates ecology in a crop field? So basically, in a crop field, you could count every insect and you could count every plant. You could quantify everything, right? I can say there's this many of bug A, this many of bug B, this many of bug C. I can detect the plant health, so I could count every plant growing in my field and say how healthy it is. So we basically designed this simulation which has fictitious insects and fictitious crops, which are based on reality. And the players make decisions, and their decisions will affect the insects and cause problems for them or help them be successful in the games. They have money they'll spend. And basically, one person runs the game, kind of almost like Dungeons and Dragons. A person moderates the game, or we also have a computer program that will do it for you. And that person is keeping track of all the things in the field. Like I said, the players make decisions, they have money, and their goal is to have the most healthy crop they can and use their money wisely. So we created this fictitious crop. We created these fictitious insects that don't actually exist, and we based them on reality. And the reason we made fictitious insects in the game is because scientists would challenge it too much if we used real ones. And the problem is, as you know, with science, the science is constantly changing, or insects and organisms are adapting, right? So this insect here, the orange one, we based off of aphids, which are an insect that reproduce very quickly. Well, even just for that one type of insect, you could debate about how much they can reproduce each year, how frequently they reproduce, and if they're adapting and changing over time to reproduce more or less. And so to keep this from changing the game all the time and keeping the game kind of evergreen, we decided to not use real insects, because scientists could challenge it and say, you said that aphids reproduce at this rate, but I say they reproduce at this rate, and this research says this. And it's just like, no, the point of the game is not to simulate exactly what reality is, but to let pest managers learn about insects and their consequences of their choices. So in this game, they have to deal with these pests, and they've got to make good choices. They also have some beneficial insects, which are these magenta colored ones, which are like ladybugs, and they'll help you if you support them and don't use the wrong pesticides. You'll keep them alive. So the players might accidentally kill their beneficial predators in the game. There's also neutral insects, and these are all the different actions they can take. So they can scout in their field, they can get samples of what's going on, they can research and learn about the different insects. When they scout, they pull tiles out of their bag, and then they get to see what's going on. They can research and learn about the different bugs and learn whether they are beneficial or pests. They can use different pesticides. They can graze the field, add extra water, go make some extra money. And we found that overall, when we asked our participants, so this was the survey size, I believe this was 70 individuals. Maybe it says it on there somewhere, but anyways, 100% of them said that this is more engaging than a typical pest management presentation, like a PowerPoint. And then 90.5% said they learned more doing this than they would have just listening to a PowerPoint. And then 64.82 said they're more likely to make a change because of this than they would be with a PowerPoint. So now I'll just go over a couple quick tips of just things that I think are interesting and great ways to teach research-based information and also be engaging and simple, right? Trying to meet that Venn diagram we talked about. So these are just some examples of things on YouTube that are great videos. So there's this channel called Binging with Babish, and he's like a technical chef. So he's extremely good at cooking and he wants to teach people how to cook. Well, there's tons of people that teach people how to cook. So in order to distinguish himself, almost kind of like evolution, right? You've got to adapt and make yourself unique. He cooks things from movies. So he'll cook like a plate, like an edible plate that you can eat off of Willy Wonka, or the cake off of a Super Mario game, or the ice cream off of Home Alone, of this special ice cream that Kevin McAllister ate in the hotel, or whatever, right? So again, he's taking his expertise and he's combining it with something that the public connects with. The public in general may not be interested in cooking, but they are interested in things from movies and things from video games. So he's tying into that to make it more engaging. Another couple examples of like combining things, right? So there's these great videos by Wired that are called, they're basically just called whatever the type of profession. So it's like mortician support or poison support or whatever, right? Instead of like tech support, it's like these different things. So basically they'll have these professionals, so either a toxicologist or a mortician or like an archaeologist or whoever. People on the internet will ask them really weird, bizarre questions that are probably I don't know, not relevant to everybody, but they're just silly or weird questions that they'll ask. And then they will answer them as best as they can using technical terms and trying to teach people. So it's not just this boring thing of a mortician teaching you a technique. It's people asking these weird questions and you wondering why they're asking those questions. And then they answer them for you by going in and like talking about the actual science behind toxicology of like, okay, can this spider kill me, or what happens? Like, what's sunburn poison? Like, just questions. They try to break down these questions and make them simple for people, and it's very engaging. So the only other tips I'd share with you are, if you have ideas of ways to communicate your research, go ahead and make a proof of concept. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know, trying to just make one video and then sharing it with your peers and seeing how they react. And just the biggest thing that's helped me is just always gathering feedback from others and asking people what they think and networking and knowing people, because a lot of the stuff I do on my channel, I do a lot of the work myself, but a lot of it I couldn't do without others because I meet other creators and other people, right? I've met artists who are willing to contribute their art to help me out, or I meet people who produce music, and then we start partnering because I can use their music in my videos and help them out. And so networking is a big critical part of this. But yeah, I think with that, I'm going to close out of the PowerPoint here. Stop sharing, and I'll take your questions or whatever you have. If not, I guess maybe I've put you guys to sleep and you can enjoy that nice little nap I gave you. So I can't hear you, Norm. You're going to have to unmute your mic.
Well, we're doing Q&A. I'm also going to pop a poll.
Oh yeah, before we do that, Norm's got a poll to fill out, so please fill that out.
We can do it while Q&A is happening, but the electronic copy for people on Zoom and paper copies for people here. Any questions? Any questions?
Yes, I have a question actually. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Sure.
So I would like to ask, like in let's say, for example, in a conference where like speakers still have limited time for as low as, let's say, 8 minutes. Like, what's what suggestions do you have in that regard to come up with a powerful presentation that maybe includes some form of audiovisual representation of that particular concept?
I think the best thing you can do is, if you have 8 minutes, I would not have too many slides. I would try not to go through a lot. I would try to pick, one piece of information or maybe two concepts you want people to get out of this, right? I would, if it was an 8-minute presentation does not have to be 15, 20 slides. And I would not put any text. You could see when I did my presentation, for the most part, other than maybe one of them, I try to have no text on my presentations, because if people can just read it, then why don't they just read it, and I just write it down for them and hand them a paper, and then I'm done with my presentation, right? So trying to have minimal text, having more images, and then keeping the pace moving is going to help. So maybe kind of like I did, having some sort of a metaphor or something at the beginning to hook them into your presentation of, if you're working with fruit flies that are breeding or something, you can say some joke about, if you're having a hard time getting the ladies, well, you can learn from these fruit flies because they have this new mating technique or whatever, right? Just something funny, right? Just bring the human element to your presentation, because people who are technical experts who are in your field already, they will listen to you no matter what, because they're super interested in what you're saying. But there might be people in that room that don't have a clue what you're talking about, and they may think, I'm not interested in this, I'm just going to sit on my phone. So trying to hook them in and get them engaged using lots of visuals. But I would try not to have too much information. And then I would practice your presentation. Do it with your grandma or your aunt or your sister or somebody who has nothing to do with science. Obviously, there will have to be some science in it, but depending on your audience, you could try to do that, and then maybe pick something in between your technical versus really easy to understand, because it's very easy to be technical, but it's very hard to be simple. So it takes a lot of practice and a lot of time and rewriting to try and simplify things. But I'd say simplify it, have lots of images, and yeah, know your audience. So good question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once. All right. I guess we'll call that a talk. Jason, you said you were going to share your email with others.
Yeah, let me put that I'll put it into the chat, and then I can pop it up on my screen actually too. That's my email. If you're interested in learning about the Pest Friends board game or some of my work, or if you just have questions, please feel free to reach out. Or if you want templates for scripts for making videos, I can share that with you. Excuse me. But yeah, let me pull up. I'll put a thing on the screen as people are headed out. They'll have access to this.
And this meeting was recorded, so once we get it edited, it will be up on the library's webpage. So if you have any more questions or you want to look back at something, you'll be able to access it there.